Coffee Break Spanish, Program 54.
Buenos dias, how you do? We got something for you. A bit of Spanish you can try. It's not hard, now don't you cry. Más cerveza, por favor. Un cafecito, I want more. No haggis here, I hope that's fine. Just a bit of Espanol online. Espanol, you're in control. Just be resilient. One in Spanish is dead brilliant. Just be prepared. Mark and Kara will take you there. Now you're on a roll. It's Coffee Break Espanol.
It's that time of week again.
Time for you to sit back with a cup of coffee
Switch off from the rest of the world.
and tune into...
Coffee Break Spanish.
You're listening to episode 54 of Coffee Break Spanish, and in this episode, we're going to be learning a bit more about how to talk in the past.
Es así. Last week, la semana pasada, hablamos del pasado.
Last week, we spoke about something.
El pasado, the past. You were right to say that we spoke about something. Hablamos. It sounds just like the present tense, but we know we're talking about the past because I said la semana pasada, last week.
And we'll be talking a little bit more about this today.
I wonder if our listeners can remember the name of this particular past tense we're talking about, because remember, you can't really say the past tense because there are lots of them. What was the name of the tense we learned last week?
It was a preterite tense.
Perfecto. Y esta semana vamos a aprender un poco más.
Let's get on with the show.
¿Estás lista, Cara?
Sí, Mark, estoy lista para aprender español con Coffee Break Spanish.
Coffee Break Espanol.
So it's time to move on from last week. We started looking at the preterite tense and we looked at AR verbs last week. Cara, have you done your homework?
Tried to do my homework. I still haven't gotten very far though.
So I asked everybody last week to concentrate on the AR endings in the preterite tense. Now, just to remind you, that was, for example, taking hablar, hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. And what I wanted you to do was get so used to this that you would be able to use it very, very quickly, saying it in that rhythm. Hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. Cara, would you like to try this in front of the whole world, or hundreds of thousands of listeners? Would you like to try it, please?
Okay. Hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron.
Muy bien, muy bien. Now, I hope everybody's been practicing this week. Now, do you remember when we were looking at the present tense? Actually, quite recently, we introduced two other conjugations. That was ER verbs and IR verbs. Cara, can you remember any examples of ER verbs?
Comer.
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 Okay, when you're saying an infinitive, always trying to put the pronunciation, or the stress rather, on the last syllable. Comer.
Comer.
Hablar.
Hablar.
And as an example of an IR verb, subir.
Subir.
Subir. Subir means to go up. Okay. Now, when we looked at ER and IR verbs, we were looking at them in the present tense. And just as in the present tense, they have slightly different conjugations from AR verbs, they have different conjugations also in the preterite tense. And that's what we're going to look at today. Let's take comer, your suggestion. Rather than hablé, hablaste, habló, we're going to use different endings here. And those endings are comí,
Comí.
comiste,
Comiste.
comió.
Comió.
Okay. So comí,
Comí.
comiste,
Comiste.
comió.
Comió.
Okay. So that is slightly different from the AR verbs with e, aste, o. This time we've got I, iste, yo.
I. Iste. Yo.
Comí, comiste, comió.
Comí. Comiste. Comió.
So, comiste, what would that mean?
You ate.
You ate, or did you eat? Okay. Comí,
I ate.
I ate, or I did eat, I suppose. And comió?
He, she, or it ate.
Exactly. Comió, the third person singular. Now, when it comes to the first person plural, the we part, we say comimos.
Comimos.
Now, do you remember when we were looking at hablar? We found out that hablamos, the preterite form, is exactly the same as hablamos, the present form. So we speak and we spoke are both translated exactly the same way in Spanish with hablamos, assuming you're using the preterite tense. Now, think of comer, meaning to eat. How would you say we eat in the present tense?
Comemos.
Comemos. Okay, so you're using the E or the A sound, the letter E, of the infinitive, comer, and putting that into the verb, comemos. Comemos.
Comemos.
That's the present tense of comer. When you're using the preterite tense, it becomes comimos.
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 So, comí, comiste, comió.
Comí, comiste, comió.
Comimos.
Comimos.
Cara, can you guess what the you plural Spanish, the Spain version form is?
Comisteis.
Comisteis, exacto. Comisteis.
Comisteis.
And the they form, or indeed the you polite plural form, is comieron.
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 Okay, so we've got comí, comiste, comió.
Comí, comiste, comió.
Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Muy bien. Okay, I'm going to say this once, and then I would like you to repeat it. That's the listener repeating, and then Cara will repeat. So let's go through the whole conjugation of comer in the preterite tense. Comí, comiste, comió.
Comí, comiste, comió.
And then the plural forms, comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Now just watch the comisteis.
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 Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Muy bien. Let's try the whole thing again. Comí, comiste, comió. Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Comí, comiste, comió. Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Muy bien. Now that was comer. Comer meaning
To eat.
to eat. It also has that kind of specific meaning of to have lunch. Comer, la comida, is the meal in the middle of the day. Can you remember what the word for the meal at the end of the day is?
Well, I think the verb to have dinner is cenar, but I'm not sure about the word for the meal, the noun.
Yeah, cenar is exactly right, or cenar in Latin America. Cenar means to dine or to have dinner. So la cena is the word for dinner in the evening.
La cena.
Now, this will vary slightly depending on which country or which Spanish-speaking country you're most familiar with. But in Spain, la comida at lunchtime, comer, and la cena at dinner time in the evening, la cena. And you're also kind of getting something for nothing with comida, because la comida is both the word for the meal that you have at lunchtime and also the general word for food. Just as comer means to eat at lunchtime, to have lunch, and it's also the general verb to eat, comer.
Comer.
Comí, comiste, comió. Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Comí, comiste, comió. Comimos, comisteis, comieron.
Muy bien. Okay, that's comer and that is to eat. Let's take another ER verb. We could take, for example, vender. Vender.
To sell.
Muy bien. Vender, to sell. So you would say, I sold.
Vendí.
Vendí. You sold.
Vendiste.
He, she, it, or you polite sold.
Vendió.
Muy bien. Vendí, vendiste, vendió.
Vendí. Vendiste. Vendió.
Now, we sold.
Vendimos.
Vendimos. You, plural, in Spain sold.
Vendisteis.
Vendisteis. And they sold.
Vendieron.
Vendieron. And that's also used, of course, for the you, plural, polite. And indeed, you, plural, in Latin America. So that's vender, another example of an ER verb. We've had comer. So you should now be fairly familiar with the ER verbs in the preterite tense. Now there is another conjugation, and that other conjugation is for
IR verbs.
IR verbs indeed. But before we get on to that, let's think a little more about when we use the preterite. The preterite tense is used in what situation, Cara?
In the past, when you're talking about something that happened once.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about something that happened, an event that occurred. So if you're talking about something, for example, we gave the example last week of I got up, I washed, I had my breakfast, I left the house, and so on. And this is individual actions which happened once. These are all talked about in the preterite tense. In English, we have a variety of tenses that we use to talk about the past. I did, I have done, I had done, I was doing, and so on. And it's the same in Spanish. But if you think about a narrative tense, think almost of a children's book. He slayed the dragon. He rescued the princess. The princess embraced him. They fell in love. Okay, we'll come back to that falling in love thing a little later, because after all, it is Valentine's Day this week. Anyway, I've got some good news for you. We're going to go on to IR verbs now in the preterite tense. And you'll never believe this. IR verbs sound quite familiar. Let's take the example of subir. You mentioned it earlier. Subir.
Subir.
Now, if I say to you that I went up, is subí.
Subí.
You went up is subiste.
Subiste.
And he, she, or it went up is subió.
Subió.
We went up, subimos.
Subimos.
You all went up in Spain, subisteis.
Subisteis.
They went up, subieron.
Subieron.
Does that sound at all familiar?
It sounds very, very familiar, Mark.
It's exactly the same as ER verbs in the preterite tense. So ER and IR verbs, regular verbs, form their endings in the preterite tense in exactly the same way. Let's take subir again. Subí, subiste, subió.
Subí, subiste, subió.
Subimos, subisteis, subieron.
Subimos, subisteis, subieron.
Muy bien. Okay, this time I'll say the whole thing from beginning to end. I'll leave a space and then Cara will repeat after you, the listener. So, subí, subiste, subió. Subimos, subiste, subieron.
Subí, subiste, subió. Subimos, subisteis, subieron.
Subisteis.
Subisteis. I find it really difficult to say.
It's really difficult to say. And the thing is, to be perfectly honest, if you're in Latin America, you will not be using that word much. So it probably doesn't really need to be learned. However, as we said last week, I think it works with the rhythm. And also it's really important for recognizing it, because if you're reading any Spanish or listening to any Spanish, then there's a good chance that you will hear that form, even if you're in Latin America, where it tends not to be used. So we've got subir as an example of an IR verb. Let's take another example of an IR verb. Let's take abrir.
Abrir.
What does abrir mean?
To open.
To open. So I opened.
Abrí.
Abrí. That was a very Scottish accent there, Cara.
Sorry.
Abrí. Abrí.
Abrí.
Abriste?
Abriste.
That would be you opened. What would he, she, or it opened be?
Abrió.
And to say we opened, you would say?
Abrimos.
Abrimos. You all opened?
Abristeis.
What's your stress? Abristeis.
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 And they opened?
Abrieron.
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 Muy bien. So you have got 2 verbs for the price of 1, or 2 conjugations for the price of 1 this week. The ER verbs and IR verbs, regular verbs in the preterite tense, both take their endings in exactly the same way. So that's I, iste, yo, imos, isteis, ieron.
I, iste, yo. Imos, isteis, ieron.
Now, next week we're going to be looking at some irregular verbs in the preterite tense. And that's where things do change quite a bit. Take, for example, the verb ir. Ir means
To go.
to go. And how do you say I go?
Boy.
Boy. So boy doesn't have much to do with ir, does it?
Not at all.
Okay, well, let's take this a step further. In the preterite tense, ir becomes fui.
Fui?
Fui, yeah. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with ir or indeed boy. It's a completely separate idea. However, it's still related. But we'll be learning more about that next week. And when we come to do our verbs next week, when we're coming to talk about the preterite tense of some irregular verbs like to go, to do, and other things like that, we're going to be doing that in a kind of specific situation. And this is all because Cara told me something before we started recording tonight. Is that right, Cara?
Sí.
Cara, ¿cómo se llama
Antonio.
Antonio? ¿Y quién es Antonio?
Mi amigo?
¿Tu amigo? ¿O quizás tu novio?
Sí, es mi novio.
Okay, now, I don't know if our listeners will know the difference between novio and amigo. Probably you will, because I think we've done this before. Novio means?
Boyfriend?
Amigo would just mean?
Friend.
So, Cara's got a new boyfriend. And it just so happens, se llama Antonio.
Sí, y es español.
Es español. Puedes practicar tu español con Antonio, ¿no?
Claro que sí.
Muy bien. If you notice a sudden improvement in Cara's Spanish, it'll be because she's been practicing very hard with Antonio. Anyway, next week we're going to be putting Cara on the spot, porque esta semana es la fiesta de San Valentín.
Yep, it's Valentine's Day.
And that means that next week we'll be able to ask Cara where she went, what she did she go out, and all these kind of things associated with the preterite tense. She can tell us what she did, but she's going to need some irregular verbs for that. So we'll put her to the test next week after we've learned some of the irregular verbs in the preterite tense.
Coffee Break Español.
And on that romantic note, we'll leave it there for this week. Now, next week, we'll be quizzing Cara all about her new man, and we'll be using the preterite tense to do so. We'll be learning a few irregular verbs, and we'll also be using some of the verbs we've already learned. By that time, we'll be able to ask her all about Antonio, how they celebrated Valentine's Day, where they went, and so on.
You're loving this, aren't you?
Well, it's all in the interests of education.
I think I've heard enough. Don't forget that you can download our extra materials by signing up to become a premium member of Coffee Break Spanish, or by purchasing our season passes.
It's perhaps worth pointing out that the season pass for Unit 6 won't be available until after Lesson 60. And to answer another common question from our listeners, if you do sign up, you'll get access to the new materials from Unit 6 onwards. You can access all the bonus materials for Units 1 to 5 through our season pass system.
Bueno, ya está.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it there for this week. I think I've embarrassed Cara enough. Thanks for listening. Muchas gracias por haber escuchado.
And we'll be back next time with more Coffee Break Spanish.
One question, Cara. Do you think Antonio might help us out sometime with the podcast?
Quizás.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Adiós.
Adiós.
Coffee Break Español.
This podcast was brought to you by the Radiolingua Network. Find out more at www.radiolingua.com.